Hello students, welcome to your geography class once again. Well, dear students, in the previous class we discussed composition of atmosphere, chapter 4, that is air. Now, in continuation to the same, today we will discuss with structure of the atmosphere. The atmosphere can be divided into 5 layers according to the diversity of temperature and density. The layers are as under, that is troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, or say ionosphere, and finally the exosphere. Let us elaborate the location of these atmospheric layers and their unique and specific properties. The first layer, troposphere, it is the lowermost layer of the atmosphere. The height of this layer is about 18 kilometers on the equator and 8 kilometers on the poles. The thickness of the troposphere is greatest at the equator because the air gets heated up, right, and transported to a greater heights by strong convectional currents. Then troposphere contains dust particles and water vapor. This is one of the main cause that all the weather related phenomenon take place in this particular layer of atmosphere. This is the most important layer of the atmosphere because all kinds of weather changes takes place, or climatical changes takes place only in this particular layer. Then the air never remain static in this layer, therefore this layer is also called changing sphere or troposphere. You will find that the air in this particular layer of atmosphere is dynamic in state. The if you take into account the environmental temperature decreases with increasing height of atmosphere, the decrease is at a rate of 1 degree Celsius for every 165 meters of height. This is particularly defined as normal lapse rate. The zone separating troposphere with the another layer, right, or the second layer, or say stratosphere, is known as tropopause, or you can simply say where the uh, troposphere ends, at that point it is known as tropopause. The air temperature at the tropopause is about minus 80 degree Celsius over the equator and minus 45 degree Celsius over the poles. The temperature here is nearly constant and hence it is called tropopause. The second layer to the atmosphere is your stratosphere. Stratosphere is found just above the troposphere. It extends up to a height of 50 km. The temperature remains almost the same in the lower part of this layer up to a height of 20 km. After this, the temperature increases slowly with the increase in height. The temperature increases on account of presence of this ozone layer in it, right, because ozone holds the capacity to observe ultraviolet rays of sun. So that is how the temperature in this particular layer increases up to a height of 20 kilometers and thereafter it decreases, right. Then weather related incidences do not take place in this layer because the air is calm and it is free of clouds, right. The air blows horizontally here, therefore this layer is considered as one of the best layer or the ideal layer for flying the aircraft. So all the airplanes fly in stratosphere. The upper limit where it ends is commonly termed as stratopause. One important feature of the stratosphere is that it contains a layer of ozone gas. The relative thickness of the ozone layer is measured in Dobson units. Fine. It is mainly found in the lower portion of the stratosphere. Now, it generally forms approximately at a height of 20 to 30 kilometers above the Earth's surface, and it contains a high concentration of ozone O3 in relation to the other parts of the atmosphere. composition. It is the region of the stratosphere that absorbs most of the sun's UV radiations or the ultraviolet rays of sun. The next layer after your stratosphere is your mesosphere. Now, when you talk about this, or you can say it is the third layer of the atmosphere, it extends up to a height of 80 km. In this layer, the temperature starts decreasing with increasing altitude and may reach up to minus 100 degrees Celsius at a height of 80 km. Sorry, the meteors, these are the heavenly bodies which revolve between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter, right? At times, when they detach and fall, right, they come in contact with Earth's atmosphere and they generally get destroyed, or they get decomposed here, right? At this particular layer of atmosphere, they are burned out on account of excessive friction generated. The upper limit of the mesosphere is known as mesopause. After mesosphere, we have the next layer that is called thermosphere. This layer is located between 80 to 400 km above the mesopause. It contains electrically charged particles commonly known as ions, and on account of presence of these ions, this layer is also known as ionosphere. Now, this layer has a unique property that it helps in wireless communication or say radio transmission, and at the modern time it is very essential because we are using variety of say devices which work on wireless technology, whether be your cell phone or your television, what you are watching at your home. So for this particular say entertainment, information, communication, this layer is very important. Fine. So radio waves are transmitted from Earth, are reflected back to the Earth by this layer, and due to this radio broadcasting has become possible, right? The temperature here starts increasing with height, and last of all, the uppermost layer of the atmosphere is commonly known as exosphere, right? This layer has a very thin say air, and light gases are generally seen in this particular layer of atmosphere like helium and hydrogen, okay, and thereafter it merges with outer space, right? So altogether we have discussed with the basic structure of the atmosphere, which comprises of main layers starting from your troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, and finally exosphere, right? Now let's discuss the elements of weather and climate, right? The main elements of atmosphere which are subjected to change with say subjected to change and which are likely to influence human life on the earth are your temperature, pressure, winds, humidity, clouds, and precipitation, right? So we'll have a short note of all these one by one. And when you talk about temperature, the temperature that we feel every day is the temperature of the atmosphere, right? And if you define temperature, the degree of hotness and coldness of the air is known as temperature, or the degree of hotness or coolness of any of the article defines its temperature. The temperature changes basically, there are a number of factors which influence temperature, but you find that it changes or it range varies between day and night and from season to season. You can say during the daytime the temperature is high in comparison to the nights, right? And similarly summers are more say summers are likely to have higher temperature than the winter seasons, right? So summers are hotter than winters. Then this temperature is influenced by the amount of solar insolation which is received by us at different places over the earth's surface. There's a simple phenomenon that the concentration of the solar insolation is maximum near the equator, and as and when we start moving from from equator towards the poles, the temperature or the amount of insolation received goes on decreasing. That is, the sun rays has to travel longer distances, and they go slant, right? So that's the reason we have three distinctive temperature zones, or say temperature areas over the surface of earth. That is the torrid zone, the temperate zone, and the frigid zone, right? So accordingly the temperature varies over surface of earth, right? So the important factor that influence the distribution of temperature is insolation, which has been rightly explained with the help of diagram which is given at the right hand side of your slide. Insolation is the incoming solar energy intercepted or captured by the earth, right? The amount of insolation decreases from equator towards the poles. I have already told you why it decreases, because here the sun rays have to cover less distance and they are straight, whereas as and when an individual move from equator towards the pole, the rays have to travel longer distances and they are slant in nature. Therefore the temperature decreases in the same manner. Now temperature in cities is much higher than that of villages. It's very true, because in your villages you have got open area, right? And the radiation is less, right? That is, the incoming solar insolation is observed, and there is no obstacle, nothing, there is nothing which could be heated very fast there. The soil observes it. In the villages you find that there is commonly a large open area is seen, whereas when you talk for cities, you have a very dense construction, right? And even in those construction you find the material uses of metals, right? And the concrete, okay, which even the tar on the road, it observes the heat and finally it radiates, right? That's the main reason that your cities are much more say hotter than the open areas, right? This heat is released during the night. Also, the crowded high rising buildings of the cities trap the warm air and thus rise the temperature of the cities. Hope it is clear that why cities are much high, have high temperature than the open areas in the villages. Fine. Then there is less of vegetation in the cities, whereas in the rural dwellings you find plenty of vegetation available. So this also neutralizes the temperature. Fine. Then second is the air pressure. It is a very important say constituent to your weather and climatical to bring weather and climatical changes over the surface of earth. When you define air pressure, it is simply the existing atmospheric air exerts pressure on the, say, articles or the articles as well as the individuals living on, or the objects living on the surface of earth, right? And we simply call it as air pressure or atmospheric pressure. So air pressure is defined as the pressure exerted by the weight of air on the earth's surface. As we go up the layers of atmosphere, right, the pressure falls rapidly because the density goes on decreasing, right? The air pressure is very high at the sea level and it decreases with height. Then horizontally the distribution of air pressure is basically influenced by the temperature of the air at a given place. In areas where your temperature is high, the air gets heated and rises. This creates a low pressure area, and low pressure is associated with cloudy skies and wet weather, right? In areas of having low temperature, the air is cool and dry, right? Heavier air sinks and creates high pressure area. High pressure is associated with clear and sunny skies. The air always moves from high pressure area to low pressure area, which is generally seen. So here in the diagram you have the maximum of the air pressure at the sea level, and as and when you reach the go to as you escalate high or you reach at an higher altitude, the air pressure goes on decreasing as the atmospheric layers, say atmospheric air, say the density of the atmospheric air goes on decreasing, or the air column goes on decreasing, it is much thin. Fine. Then next it comes up with wind. The movement of air from high pressure area to a low pressure area is basically explained or called as wind. Wind can be broadly divided into three types. First is permanent winds. The trade winds, westerlies and easterlies are the permanent planetary winds. These winds blow constantly throughout the year in a particular direction. They do not change their direction, right? Then seasonal winds are the winds which change their direction in different seasons. For example, the monsoon winds in India. That is, when they are in an advancing stage, their direction is from sea towards the land, and when they are in a retreating phase, their direction of movement is from land towards the sea, right? So that's why they are called as seasonal winds. Then winds which are seen in a particular location and their area of influence is seen in that particular region, or they are seen at a particular period of day or a year, they are called as your local winds. Like say Lu is an commonly seen local wind which blows in the northern plains during the summer seasons or summer months in northern India. It is a hot, dry and dusty wind which blows afternoon and continues till late evening, right? And direct exposure to this wind often cause health problems or health issues. Now this is the glimpse of the planetary winds, right? So as per the pressure differences, okay, temperature difference has a direct bearing on the pressure system over the earth surface. Fine. Then next comes up with your moisture. It is simply say the water vapor in the atmosphere. When water evaporates and it generally from land and different water bodies, it becomes water vapor. Moisture in the air is known as humidity, right? When the air is full of water vapor, or you can simply say when the air is completely saturated, that it cannot hold any more amount of it, we call it as a humid day. As the air gets warmer, its capacity to hold the water vapor increases, and so it becomes more and more humid. So when the water vapor rises, it after retaining or after reaching a certain height, it starts cooling. The water vapor condenses, causing formation of droplets of water. Clouds are masses of such water droplets. When these droplets of water become too heavy to float in the air, they come down as precipitation, right? Now precipitation that comes down to the earth in liquid form is called rain. There are other forms of precipitants also, right? Other form of precipitation also, like say snow, hail, sleet, right? But for your class we will be discussing the most common form of precipitation, that is rain. So on the basis of the mechanism, there are three types of rains which we generally observe on the surface of earth: the convectional rainfall, the orographic rainfall and the cyclonic rainfall. Let's review all these three types of rainfall. Now when you talk about convectional rain, it is one of the most common form of rains, right? Basically convectional cells are generated at the surface of the earth beta. The air on heating, right, when it is heated, it becomes light and rises up as convectional currents, right? Now as it rises, it expands and loses its heats, and consequently condensation takes place, and cumulus clouds are generally seen, dark clouds are seen. With thunder and lightning, heavy rainfall takes place, right? But this type of rain do not last for a very long period of time, right? Such types of rains are very common in summer months or in the hotter part of the day. And globally, these convectional rains are very popular, or say they are frequently noticed in the equatorial regions and interior part of the continent, particularly in the northern hemisphere, right? Then the second category of rains is your orographic rain. Now orography here means this rain has some relations with mountains, right? When the saturated air means the air which has water vapor or say humidity to its full capacity, right? It comes across a mountain. Now as the mountain provides resistance to this moisture laden winds, it is forced to ascend or to rise up. On rising, it expands, the temperature of the particular air gets decreased, and the moisture which is contained by the air gets condensed into tiny droplets of water. Formation of clouds takes place and rainfall occurs, right? Now the main characteristic of this sort of rain is that it have got two sides, right? The windward slope receives greatest rainfall. Now windward slope is the slope from where the wind escalates, right? Or simply say the face of the mountain which faces the rain bearing wind first, right, is commonly known as windward slope, and it is the region where we find maximum of the rainfall occurs, right? And just opposite to it, when the same wind cross over the mountain and reach to the other side of the mountain, right, we call it as leeward slope or rain shadow area. Here you find that the air has gone dry again and there are very less chances of rainfall, right? So and that is same is explained here in the slide 2, that is after giving rain on the windward side, when these winds reach the other slope, they descend and their temperature rises, then the air capacity to take its moisture increases, and hence these leeward slopes remain rainless or dry, right? The area situated on the leeward side which gets less rainfall is basically known as a rain shadow area, right? And this orographic rainfall is also nicknamed as relief rainfall. Fine. Now let's move ahead with the third type of this orographic influence is seen in our country at number of places. But the best example to it is the Western Ghats. When the southwest monsoon, they are they are advancing towards the country, they first strike the Western Ghats, and the windward side of the Western Ghats receive maximum amount of rainfall. So orography play a very important role to bring rains in this particular region, right? Next is a third and the last type of rainfall, which is commonly known as cyclonic or frontal rainfall, right? So this type of rainfall is more common in the tropical and temperate zone, where generally there is the mixing of cold air with warm air, and rainfall occurs, right? So basically the point where warm air masses and or say the cold air masses, right, they meet or they strike against each other is known as a front. Fine. So as I told you, the cold air is heavy and the warm air is light. So the cold air, on account of being heavy, pushes this warm air to rise high. Fine. And after retaining or after reaching to a certain point, the process of condensation takes place, formation of clouds occur, and we obtain rain, right? So rain obtained by this process is commonly known as cyclonic rain or frontal rain, right? So as the warm air is forced upward, it cools. When the temperature drops to below the dew point is the point at which the condensation starts. When the air can no longer hold all its water, the water starts to condense and form the clouds that cause rain. Such rain is called frontal or cyclonic rainfall, right? So that's all what we have in this lesson, right? Hope you got the concepts clearly. Thank you for giving me your valuable time. I request you to revise the lesson at home so that you can memorize the facts and figures properly. Thank you. See you in the next class very soon.